My name is Elliot Wickham. I'm 45 years old, the youngest son of a Texas shipping dynasty worth just over $3 billion, and for most of my life, I was the one they never put on the family website. I wasn't the golden heir with the perfect smile or the loud executive voice. I was the quiet one who actually kept the freight moving, the contracts alive, the ports calm. My brother ran the spotlight, I ran the machinery. And somewhere along the way, that made me invisible. I learned early how to sit at the same table and still feel like an outsider, how to swallow disrespect and call it loyalty. I told myself that was the price of family. I was wrong. Because all it took was missing one birthday, one carefully staged celebration of ego, for them to erase my name, lock me out, and unknowingly pull the pin on a system I built to survive without them. By the time they realized what they'd done, the empire was already starting to fall, and I was no longer inside it. 10:46 p.m. Houston Port Authority Office 5B. The rain hadn't stopped for hours. It hammered against the rusted siding of the warehouse like someone punching from the outside. I was still at my desk, third shift, finalizing the clearance docs for a refrigerated shipment coming in from Coatzacoalcos. Pharmaceuticals, temperature sensitive, misrouted twice, one mislabeled bill away from being seized at the customs cage. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then the screen blinked. Session terminated. Please contact your system administrator. A pause. I tried again. Access denied. My work email shut off. Slack disconnected. Company phone blacked out, screen first, like someone pulled the kill switch remotely. Then the private number buzzed. Mr. Wickham, a voice said flatly. Your employment with Wickham Logistics has been deactivated effective midnight. Your building access and digital credentials have been revoked as part of system optimization protocol. I didn't speak. Just listened. We'll mail your severance packet to the last address on file. Click. I stood. There was still one light on in the admin tower across the yard. A flash of movement inside. They were still celebrating. Dominic. His birthday. His crowning moment. New CO. New empire. I had replied politely. Told him I'd be here, keeping the freight from rotting. Apparently that wasn't festive enough. I grabbed my coat. Left the office without locking it. In the rain, the truck sat lined like soldiers abandoned mid-command. By the time I reached the parking lot, my badge no longer opened the gate. So I climbed it. Steel burned cold against my palm. 1:08 a.m. I was in my apartment, lights off, just the glow of a single desk lamp. They'd locked me out of everything they thought mattered. But they forgot something. 6 years ago, during a system overhaul, the founder, Charles Wickham, had me embed a redundancy clause. Not in the legal files. Not in the cloud. In the human layer. Paper. Ink. A physical copy of every contract over Tier 3. And one encrypted drive. No password reset. No recovery option. It lived in a fireproof box behind my bookshelf. I pulled it free. Underneath it, taped with yellowing duct tape, was a key. Red handle. No label. I hadn't touched it in over a decade. The first message I opened was from our terminal partners in Rotterdam. Mr. Wickham, your previous clearance is still registered. Is this transition permanent? I didn't answer yet. Instead, I opened the drive. Inside, the folder was named. In case they forget. Subfolder. Vendor Redline Protocol version 4.9. And then a quote I hadn't seen in years. My own handwriting. Scrawled across the notepad text file like a whisper. If they think you're not essential, let them try moving freight without you. My chest was still. No anger. No panic. Just clarity. Dominic hadn't fired a brother. He'd unplugged the central nervous system without checking where the wires ran. Phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I picked up. Silence. Then, "You're not going to like what's coming, Elliot." A second click. Hang up. Rain started again. Harder. "If they want to bury me, they just dug the wrong grave." The light in my apartment flickered once. Then again. A slow pulse, like a heartbeat trying to remember itself. I didn't move. The encrypted drive lay open beside me. I'd been awake for 23 hours straight. My hands weren't shaking. Not yet. They forgot who kept the wires together. Who renegotiated Port of Long Beach after the strike? Who cut the logistics latency across 7 states by 23%? Dominic threw a party. I wrote contingency code. And tonight, I pressed enter. The first email went to McLaren Global Freight. Subject, change of primary liaison, clause 14 be enacted. Attached, legal scan of my original contract, signature timestamped, notarized, pre-executed. That clause, buried in all Tier 1 vendor agreements, gave me emergency authority to reclaim liaison control if the chain of command breached contract via non-operational cause. Translation. You fire me for missing a birthday? Your truck stopped moving. 3 minutes later, my personal phone buzzed. McLaren confirmed. All Whitcomb-linked outbound shipments suspended until chain of command is validated. Awaiting further instruction from Elliot Whitcomb. Not Dominic. Not his plastic PR puppet board. Me. By 4:17 a.m., 6 vendors had replied. 2 ports. 1 fuel partner. I called Rafe. He picked up on the second ring. His voice dry, heavy with unslept hours. Tell me this isn't war. I stared out the cracked apartment blinds. Red lights blinked from cranes in the distance. No. It's containment. Bullshit, he muttered. You cut the oxygen line. Then maybe they'll stop lighting matches. Silence. He exhaled hard. Then, you remember what you told me in 17? When Dominic tried to reroute vaccine freight to California for PR. I nodded, knowing he couldn't see me. You said, there's a difference between driving a company and dragging it. Looks like he never learned the damn difference. He hung up. I drove to the diner. The freight house looked the same, bleach blue lighting, chipped red booths, coffee burnt down to sludge. 2 drivers sat at the counter, watching something on a cracked TV. I slid into the back booth. Black, I told the waitress. The coffee hit the table. Then the door opened. C.C. Vance. Co-founder. Retired COO. The only person left alive who knew what Clause 14b really was. She slid in opposite me, didn't order. Her lipstick was slightly smudged. She wore no jewelry. A woman who built an empire with a clipboard and a stare. Tell me this isn't a tantrum, she said. I passed her the printed vendor confirmations. Her eyes scanned them. Pupils tightening. They really locked you out. I nodded. She leaned back. Idiots. Outside, a garbage truck shrieked against metal. I buried the kill switch protocols in 2009, she murmured. You were the only one who never complained about night shift. That mattered. Cece leaned in. Her breath smelled like spearmint and control. You hit red line yet? I froze. You knew I still had access. Of course I did, she said. I wrote the clause with Charles. 1 keystroke from you, and the infrastructure buckles. I don't want collapse, I said quietly. She smiled, teeth sharp. Collapse already happened. You're just the announcement. Sunrise. Email stacked. 14 vendors pending. I typed slowly. Deliberately. No more autosaves. No cloud redundancy. This was surgical. One message came in untagged. No subject. No preview text. I opened it. Just a GIF. A single shipping container. Marked W2093. It was on the move. Wrong route. Wrong ID. I froze. That container held immunorefrigerated insulin for a pediatric network in Tulsa. It wasn't supposed to move without my signature. I double-checked the manifest. Someone forced it through, bypassed the authorization server. I called the doc. Busy. Called again. Busy. Third try in the pickup. Port security, who's this? This is Elliot Wickham. I need eyes on container W2093. Where is it? A pause. Then, that container cleared 5 hours ago. Private truck. No escort. What driver? Non-union. Private dispatch. My stomach dropped. What route? A beat. Looks like. Route 59. Northbound. Blood drained from my face. That route ran past hazardous cargo lanes, forbidden without certification. I checked the logs. Dominic had signed the override. He'd replaced me with a part-timer who didn't even have a Class A. A single misstep. A sharp turn. A delay in refrigeration? It would explode. I stared at the last line in the manifest. Temperature integrity critical. Breach threshold, 11 minutes. I reached for my phone. Typed 3 words to CC. Red line. Engage. Now. Then I stood. If they want to play fire, I'm done being the extinguisher. Initiating kill chain protocol, red line 1.00. 1:47 p.m. Sunlight cut across the glass walls of the Emergency Logistics Command Center. Somewhere behind me, the buzz of filtered air and murmuring dispatchers bled together like white noise. I kept my eyes on the live traffic feed, Route 59, drone cam feed stuttering. 1 frame every second. Then I saw it. The blue cab. Unmarked. No fleet ID. The wrong truck. Hauling the wrong container. And too fast. Zoom it, I said. The tech didn't ask who I was. He just clicked. The driver was on the phone. Left hand, half on the wheel. No eyes on the road. They don't even know what they're moving, Cece whispered beside me. You built a machine they couldn't operate. And now they're kicking the panels just to see what sparks. I didn't answer. Her voice again, this time lower. 1 missed checkpoint. 1 overheated load. That stuff ignites like napalm if it leaks. I already knew. Who cleared it? I asked. She slid a printed log to me. Dominic's signature. Timestamped. 4 hours earlier. Right under a line item marked emergency outbound, expedite for PR coverage. They'd moved a medical-grade haul on an expired authorization for media optics. I stood. My chair rolled back into the wall. People looked up. I didn't care. I walked straight to the internal comm terminal and keyed in a manual override. Engage redline chain, level 3. The screen pulsed. A siren chirped once, low volume. Then screens began flickering. Vendor by vendor, port by port, each one turning red. Suspended. Frozen. Until the internal temperature data could be confirmed. Rafe called. You're tanking the East Coast. I'm keeping kids from dying. You just triggered 5 layers of federal reporting. Then let them read. Click. 3:05 p.m. Outside the AMC distribution hub in Dallas, someone was already filming. The blue cab truck was stopped. Engine still running. Two men in hazmat suits approached the container, one holding a thermal sensor. They didn't speak. The sensor beeped once. Then screamed. Overtemp. Threshold breached. One guard vomited in his mask. The shipment hadn't just failed. It had cooked itself. Inside were 94 pallets of pediatric insulin, now chemically unstable. Explosive risk, high. The news hit before sunset. Breaking, improperly dispatched cargo causes level 2 biohazard alert. Emergency response engaged. Source tied to Whitcomb Logistics expedited order. No mention of me. Not yet. But the old logo flashed. The same empire that used to put me in the background. Now it was in the headlines. And bleeding. 7:11 p.m. My apartment. No lights. Just the hallway glow seeping under the door. I kept the TV muted. Watched the closed caption crawl. Federal agencies seeking executive signatures on manifest override. Internal sabotage or negligence unknown. Then came the knock. 3 slow raps. Flat. I froze. Someone moved on the other side. I heard a breath. Then retreating footsteps. I opened the door. Nothing. But a file sat on the mat. Inside. A photo of me, grainy, street-level angle, walking into the diner with Cece. Another photo. Cece entering the vendor tower 6 hours before I was fired. Another. Dominic. On a yacht. Holding a champagne bottle. Behind him? The same driver who'd crashed the container. No uniform. No license. Just a familiar smirk. At the bottom of the file was a note. Not typed. Handwritten. Your loyalty was your first mistake. Your silence will be your last. No signature. Just a single red fingerprint pressed beside the corner. Blood or ink, I couldn't tell. I stared at the file. There's a saying in my family. One I stopped believing a long time ago. Loyalty builds empires. Silence sustains them. But tonight, I realized something worse. It wasn't just silence that held them together. It was fear. And fear's about to change sides. Because tonight wasn't a system error. It was a message. And I just wrote one back. 11:32 a.m. I was sitting in a barbershop in East Austin, one of those spots that hadn't changed since the 70s. Vinyl chairs, sports radio bleeding static, and a wall of signed photos from men who hadn't mattered in a decade. I didn't need a haircut. I needed a drop. Cece said it would be in the magazines. 3rd shelf. Under the 2nd issue of Rail Freight Weekly. I waited. The barber called out, "You next?" "Just killing time," I said. Then I stood, walked past a father trimming his kid's sideburns, and pulled the magazine. The envelope was there. Heavy. Unmarked. Slight oil scent. Back in the car, I opened it with my keys. Inside, one printed page. 3 lines handwritten at the bottom. If you're reading this, the board knows. The DOJ doesn't yet. But they're circling. Then. Follow the money trail, not Dominic's. Charles's. Look into Nolan Dross. Also, your father lied. My pulse hit a new rhythm. Charles Whitcomb, my father, was the founder. Dead 6 years. Buried with medals, write-ups, and a Harvard alumni plaque they still polish monthly. And Nolan Dross? He was dead, too. CEO before Dominic. My father's right hand. Died in a car crash upstate. Or so they told us. That letter just cracked the coffin lid. 2:14 p.m. I drove straight to the archive room in Wickham HQ. I still had physical key access, one of the oversights from an earlier system patch no one ever cleaned. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed over rows of gray metal cabinets. I moved fast. Files marked confidential, legacy accounting. Red tape. White stickers. Dross's name wasn't on any of them. Then I found it. A single thin folder. Misfiled under N/D shipping transfers. But it wasn't inventory. It was bank records. Personal offshore wires. $4.6 million. Transferred monthly. To a shell in Curacao. Dated up to a week before Nolan's crash. I flipped the last page. There it was. Signature, C. Wickham. A direct link. The founder wasn't just cleaning books. He was moving cash. Fast. Under the radar. To a man who was legally dead. I whispered aloud, dead men don't cash checks. Unless they were never dead. My phone vibrated. Block number. I didn't answer. Just let it ring. It rang again. Third time, I picked up. Stop digging, a woman's voice said. Pause. Then quieter, they'll bury you next. Click. I drove to Cesse's. Suburban. Gated. The kind of place where the security camera is disguised as a birdhouse. She was outside, pruning a bonsai. Calm. Too calm. You knew, I said. She didn't turn. I suspected, she murmured. You just confirmed it. You helped write the financial routing. Charles made me. Said it was legacy shielding. Protection from external seizure, he called it. I tossed the file onto the table. He was laundering his own money. And Nolan? I pressed. She paused. Then, I think he staged the crash. You think? He was afraid of something. Or someone. Last month before he died, he asked me if the warehouse on Route 11 still had a fire exit. My gut twisted. That warehouse burned down in 2019. Official cause, faulty circuit. But I was there the day after. I saw the melted lock. That wasn't a short. That was arson. Cece looked up finally. I didn't know it would lead to this, Elliot. You were never supposed to see it. I built everything under his name. Protected the empire he was draining behind my back. She said nothing. I was the only one not playing chess, and they still sacrificed me. She touched the file. Then make them regret it. I left her porch at dusk. Light bleeding gold across the lawn. In my rearview mirror, I saw a man step out of a parked black SUV. Not moving. Just watching. No plates. I turned left, hard and fast. The SUV didn't follow. Not yet. Back in my apartment, the power was out. Breaker flipped. No signs of forced entry. No glass broken. But the top drawer of my desk? Open. Inside, the hard copy of the In Case They Forget folder was gone. I didn't panic. I looked at the framed photo of me and my father, back in '98. I'd kept it out of obligation. Now I cracked the frame open. Behind the glass, taped with black electrical tape, was a micro SD card. Unlabeled. My real insurance. Twice mirrored. Never mentioned. And on it? The internal compliance report Nolan wrote the night before his crash. I'd never opened it before. Until now. And the first line was, if anything happens to me, it wasn't an accident. The SD card warmed in my palm like it was alive. I sat on the edge of the bed, laptop open, curtains half drawn. Sirens in the distance. Not close. Not yet. I'd learned the difference. I clicked the file. A single video. Timestamped 11 years ago. Nolan Dross appeared on screen, older than I remembered, eyes hollow, voice steady but rushed. If you're watching this, he said, then Charles decided I was a liability. I held my breath. He calls it legacy protection. He says empires don't fall from enemies. They rot from sons who want shortcuts. Nolan swallowed. Dominic doesn't know the whole picture. He's a blade without a handle. Cut. A document followed. PDF. Compliance memo. Internal. Signed by Nolan and countersigned by my father. Charles Whitcomb. It outlined a contingency, rerouting funds offshore, masking executive exposure, creating distance between ownership and liability in the event of operational collapse. Collapse. Not crisis. Not accident. Collapse. A line at the bottom, handwritten and scanned in. If the youngest ever leaves, trigger containment. I closed the laptop. For a moment, the room felt smaller. Like the walls had leaned in to listen. There's a saying I heard once, passed down like advice but used like a threat: power doesn't ask permission. It tests loyalty. My father had tested mine. Quietly. For years. And when I failed his last test, by missing a birthday, he didn't hesitate. He pulled the string. The phone rang. Unknown number. DC area code. I answered. Mr. Whitcomb, a man said. Calm. Educated. This is Special Agent Harris with the Department of Transportation. We're initiating a formal inquiry into Whitcomb Logistics Safety Compliance. I said nothing. There's a report, he continued, flagged by multiple vendors and ports. Your name appears repeatedly as the last certified authority. Then you should read the timestamps, I said. A pause. Paper shuffling. I am, he replied. That's why I'm calling you. Not your brother. Click. 2 hours later, I was on a private road outside Austin, gravel crunching under tires, gates sliding open with a mechanical sigh. The Whitcomb Ranch hadn't changed. Same long drive. Same limestone columns. Same silence that made everything feel earned and stolen at the same time. My father was waiting on the porch. Charles Whitcomb didn't look surprised. He never did. You look tired, he said, as if we were discussing weather. So do you, I answered, stepping out of the car. We stood there. Wind through oak leaves. Somewhere, a generator hummed. You read Nolan's report, he said. Yes. And you let them think he died. He did die, Charles said. Just not the way the papers wrote it. I felt something cold settle in my chest. You built a failsafe, I said. Me. Then you set the trap. Charles smiled. Thin. Controlled. I built a company that could survive sentiment, he said. You confuse morality with management. Kids almost died. They didn't. Because I stopped it. You escalated it. Silence. He stepped closer. I could smell his cologne. Same brand for 40 years. Dominic needed pressure, he said. A fire-sharpened steel. He hired an uncertified driver. A mistake. A felony. Charles waved it off. Law is flexible when money keeps moving. I laughed. It surprised both of us. That's the problem, I said. You think this is still about movement. I pulled out my phone. Opened an email draft. Unsended. Subject line, formal disclosure, executive knowledge and liability transfer. Recipients, DOT. DOJ. 2 senators. 3 journalists. Attachments, Nolan's report. The offshore wires. The contingency clause. Charles stared at the screen. You wouldn't, he said quietly. I already did, I replied. Scheduled release. Midnight. He stepped back. For the first time, my father looked old. You'd burn everything, he said. No, I said. I'm letting it burn the way you designed. He exhaled, long and slow. I protected this family. You protected control. Another saying came to me then, something Nolan used to mutter late at night: the truth doesn't shout. It waits until the room is empty. Charles looked past me, toward the house. Toward the portraits. Toward a future that had already slipped. What do you want? He asked. I want you to stop, I said. Publicly. Tonight. And if I don't? I met his eyes. Then the empire finishes collapsing without you inside it. A phone buzzed between us. His. He checked it. Read the message. Went pale. What? I asked. He swallowed. They've arrested Dominic. Sirens, closer now. Real ones. I turned back toward my car. Behind me, my father said my name. Soft. Almost human. I didn't answer. Because some fires don't need witnesses. They just need permission. The courtroom smelled like paper and sweat. Not justice. Not truth. Just tension. Charles Whitcomb sat at the defense table. Tie perfect. Expression neutral. But his left hand wouldn't stop tapping, 2 fingers, 1 beat too fast. Dominic wasn't in the room. They'd moved him to a federal holding center after the second indictment dropped: fraud, conspiracy, endangerment. The works. Turns out, immunity evaporates when the cover story collapses. I watched my father more than the prosecutors did. Every time a name was read, his eyes twitched. But he didn't flinch. He never would. That's the problem with building empires on silence. Eventually, the noise wins. Cut scene. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Microphones. Lights. The kind of buzz that feeds on downfall. My name trended for 3 straight days. Not for revenge. For dismantling. I walked past the noise, through it, without slowing. Are you proud, Mr. Whitcomb? One shouted. I didn't answer. Because pride isn't part of cleaning house. Cut. Weeks later, I stood at the edge of the old shipping yard. Rust. Dust. Sunlight fractured through broken plexiglass. The facility was officially shut down by order of the DOT and OSHA, pending a full internal investigation. Assets frozen. Contracts voided. Reputation vaporized. I'd sent a single final memo to the vendors before everything unraveled. Integrity isn't a slogan. It's what's left when the lights go out. I still believed that. Even when no one else did. Even when it cost me everything. A voicemail played on repeat. It was from Nolan's daughter, Mirren. You gave my dad back his voice, she said. You made the ghosts matter. Thank you. That was all. No follow-up. No contact. Just the kind of closure that didn't need punctuation. Sometimes, endings don't arrive with music. Just silence. I stayed in Austin. Not for legacy. For distance. Started consulting. Quiet work. No titles. No logos. People assumed I left logistics because I hated it. I didn't. I hated what it cost to survive in it. Systems outlast people, someone once told me. But only if people never look too close. That was the flaw. That was the crack. And I'd stepped through it. One night, I ran into my father's old partner, Rand Maddox, at a private fundraiser. He didn't recognize me at first. Then he did. His hand twitched toward his drink like a reflex. His smile froze. "You're alive," he said. "Still breathing. That's a surprise." "Not for long," I said. "If you keep drinking like that." He laughed. Bitter. "You always had a soft tongue for a man with a steel spine." I leaned in. "Quiet. Empire's gone. All of it." He nodded slowly. Then he whispered, "That's what it always wanted, to be free of us." He clinked my glass. "To the ghosts we inherited." I didn't drink. I just walked out. Later, sitting alone on a park bench, I stared at the city skyline. Half the buildings had ties to my family. Now, they were just lights. No names. No stories. No shadows. Just space. And sometimes, space is where healing starts. We think legacy is what we build. But sometimes, it's what we dismantle. The courage to say, "This ends with me." That's not weakness. That's war. And I won. Not because they lost, but because I walked away before I became them.